Art, huh? Yeah, art. That's kind of what I was expecting.
Hi guys, it's Maya here, and welcome to Vartalap, a podcast where we talk about art, artists, creativity, and anything else that I want to talk about. Today on the podcast, we have Swastid. Swastid is a really good friend of mine, and he is a creative that I've known for quite a while. He primarily does photography, but he also dabbles with quite a few other things. Hi, Swastid. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, hi Maya. Thanks for having me.
So, I actually kind of want to continue with the theme of the last episode, what makes creating art satisfying for people who create art. So, I'll just start off with that. What makes art satisfying for you? What makes photography satisfying for you?
What makes photography satisfying for me, in my opinion, is that when you press the shutter button and you get that click
Yeah.
from the camera, that's that classic shutter sound,
Yeah.
and then you look into your screen and it's just what you saw right now, but from a different moment in time, and your screen
Yeah.
just shows that. And I've had my fair share of looking at that screen right after the picture and going, whoa, that's amazing. And just the overall lights and the way that the different lights play with each other, the shadows and the sun and the landscapes and the little highlight that comes on top of the landscape, when all of those like play along with each other and get along with each other,
Yeah.
that's really satisfying.
That's really cool, man. It takes like a different way of looking at photography.
Yeah, no, most of my photography work is actually me just playing with light. If you'll just go on my Instagram, then you'll literally just find pictures of darkness and sudden brightness, and it's just the different highlights that come. For example, the picture of the bulb that I took,
Yeah.
the floating bulb. When I created that, I wanted the light from the bulb to like just shimmer off my finger, and the way that the light just folds over the finger and then disappears into darkness, that's really what I was going for, and that is very satisfying.
It is. It is. It really is. So, how exactly did you get into photography and when?
I would say I've always been into photography when I was like 5th grade, 6th grade maybe. But I really kicked gears when my sister got me a camera for my birthday. I think it was 15th birthday. She got me for my 15th or 16th birthday. It was a Nikon D3300. I still have the same camera. Yeah, she left the package, like she gift wrapped it. She gift wrapped it and left it near my laptop because she knew that I would go to my laptop to play video games.
Yeah.
I saw the big package and I was like, whoa, what's this? And then I got the camera and I started playing along with it. And then again, the shutter sound really made me love my camera more, because that click that you get, that's very satisfying.
That's true. That's true. So, who would you say is like your biggest inspiration when it comes to like photography?
I've had plenty of inspirations, but in my early stages of photography, a YouTuber by the name of Peter McKinnon has always been my inspiration, and he's actually taught me a lot in the field of photography and just videography in general. I haven't really gotten into cinematography and making videos yet, but he has kind of been my role model.
And you don't really want to pursue photography, if I'm not wrong.
No, yeah, I don't. I see photography more of a hobby. I'm more in the STEM field. I'm pursuing engineering.
Why is it so? Do you think like if you start pursuing photography, it'll like take away the magic from it, or is it just that you think this is good as a hobby?
No, going into photography would put more magic into it, in my opinion, because then I get to do it more. If I take it as a career, then you get to do it more, and if you love doing what you do and you do it more, it gives you happiness. So doing photography more, if you love doing it and taking it as a career, will actually make you happier. But the reason I'm not taking photography as a career is because I love science more. I'm
Oh.
sorry, photography. I'm sorry. Yeah. And ever since I was a child, actually, I've been into science more.
So, like, a lot of people say, like, people either have, like, a science brain or, like, creative brain. They always, like, there's always that debate going on.
Yeah, I don't know who made me. I mean, I would say that my skill is split between the two. Like, some people are really good in photography or really good in science. I'm average good in photography and I'm average good in science. So it's like split between the two.
Does it get you a little bit annoyed sometimes?
Maybe sometimes. I mean, I wish there was, like energy cannot be converted nor destroyed, it can be transferred. The same way I wish that it was, skill could be transferred for like a week. I could transfer all the creative skill that I have into STEM skill and then, interconvert them whenever I need them to be. But yeah, unfortunately, that's not how the world works.
Unfortunately. So, in the current scenario, how is your mental health?
Ooh, we're diving into that now, are we? It's been very gloomy.
Uh-huh.
Like, you don't want to be productive.
Hmm.
You just want to curl up in a blanket and just sleep all day.
Hmm.
Because, the world isn't being productive. Why should I? I'm not productive. Why should I be productive when the world isn't? But I'm trying to be productive, but it's not happening.
I mean, I think that makes it like the two of us. Or maybe more than two.
I don't think it's just the two of us. I think it's the entire world. I mean, yeah, the world, the entire world
Yeah,
isn't
that is
working.
true. So the whole reason why I dabbled into this mental health question is because there's this notion in the media that like the greatest artists are born out of like a lot of suffering, like they've been through a lot or they are going through a lot when they're making their art and all of that. And essentially they're not sound people. Quite a few people believe in that, and quite sometimes if you see in movies and in like media, that's the way they portray these artists. I don't think that is healthy, but there's this I think they're romanticizing it, or I don't know, but like this whole idea of like you need to be broken and damaged to be like a great artist and all of that. So like how do you think this all like fits in, and like what are your thoughts about this?
I feel like when you have mental health issues like depression or I don't know a lot of mental health issues name, but when you have mental health issues, I just feel like you have something to talk about and you use art as an outlet. You use art as a way to express your grief, to express your feelings, and it's not necessary that you need to have negative emotions or negative mental health issues that that's the only way to make good art. No, if you're a very happy person, you'll make happy music like Africa by Toto, or you'll make songs that radiate joy instead of songs that radiate their said mental health issues. And even though mental health issues isn't something to be laughed about, or isn't something that it doesn't exist, or
It shouldn't be glamorized either.
yeah, it shouldn't be glamorized, nor should it be fake. A lot of people, they try to fake mental health issues, like, oh, I have depression,
Yeah.
I'm going to write a rap song, fake my depression and get money.
Yeah.
That never works. That will not work. And some of the greatest of all times, like Eminem and NF is relatively new, but all of these rappers, they've all come from zero. They've all come from having a very tough time in their younger years, and not only did that make them a stronger person to make stronger music right now, but that gave them something to talk about, that gave them something to use as an outlet. It gave them something that they could portray through art. If instead of depression it was happiness, I'm pretty sure Eminem would have just ended up with happy
Yeah.
song. It just so happened that it was negative instead of positive.
Do you think people relate more with these emotions?
The negative emotions.
Yeah.
I think so, yes, because I personally have, even though obviously I do not think I'm medically depressed, but just a person talking about how tough a time he's having makes people who are having a tough time, which, let's face it, is the majority of the population, because everyone goes through struggles in life, it makes them feel less alone, and so they like the music more. Listening to happy music doesn't always make you feel less alone, because when you're happy, you don't care whether you're alone or you're not.
Yeah.
So the negative emotions portrayed through art is related by more people, simply because of the fact that majority of the population, or I would like to say the entire population, has to go through struggles at some point. And so listening to someone else or seeing someone else's art portraying the same emotion, the same negative emotion, makes them feel less alone, and so they like it more.
Yeah, that really makes sense. But like, I don't remember music being so negative like before, or I don't remember people being so open about the negative emotions before. Do you think like social media has a big role to play in this, or do you think it's just essentially like everybody changing and the whole world changing?
I think it's a weird mix of both. The change in generation as well as the social media part of it. The fact, because if you look at previous generations, I don't think they thought that mental health is real. Like older generations, like if you go into great grandfather
Yeah.
generations, like a couple 100 years back, like maybe 100 years back, I'm pretty sure they didn't even think mental health issues were
Yeah.
real. They would have thought that it's a hoax of some sort. But the when the generation changes, time changes, the world changes, and now it's becoming more real that mental health issues do exist, and they are important. It's not just an issue that can be ignored and it'll just go away on
True.
its own. No, it requires help. And the fact that it's made a little more normalized, like it's okay to have mental health issues and it's not something to be ashamed about, that also contributed to the fact that people are more open about it, and that art in general is getting more recognition towards negative emotions and artists who are struggling or having a tough time.
I think like the reason why we didn't have these conversations before is because it wasn't that important. It was more important to like have a house and like have enough money, take care of your children, take care of your family, and all of that. Like this wasn't really that important. And actually, what's really funny, what's happening in India right now is that we're facing this dichotomy where half of the people are having like intellectual problems like mental health and all of this, and the other half don't even like have enough food and they don't have enough money and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's really crazy. I don't think so any other country is facing.
Yeah, because we're just so diverse that not only do we have the entire economic range, we also have the entire religious range, and we also have the entire caste range.
Yeah.
If that
Yeah.
makes sense. We just have so much diversity in India that you will find a very nice mix of everything over here.
Quite a bit of diversity. It's crazy if you like think about it. Getting back on that social media thing, how much do you think social media has changed art?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
I mean, it's not like let's discuss this. Let's just discuss this because there's no answer to this.
I mean, a negative aspect of social media has been the popularity factor. Like, I want more likes, I want more followers out of this. I want more recognition out of this. And the artist isn't wrong to feel that way, because the artist just wants recognition. The artist just wants to feel valid. And previously this was done in the form of money. So if an artist gets more money, he's more valid. If an artist sells more, he's more valid. Now it's become easier to get recognition because it's free to upload on Instagram. Instagram doesn't charge you money to upload a post so that you'll get more recognition. It's free to upload anything that you want, and yeah, you get recognition out of it. But the negative aspect is a lot of art here, I'm talking in general, like writers, poets, anywhere from writing and literature to
Anything
photography
creative.
and drawing and painting. Anything creative, it has turned into, if I don't get likes, I'm not a good artist.
So true.
That is not true. If you don't get likes, it just means that your follower base, the people who you're reaching out to, doesn't relate to your art, doesn't relate to the emotion that you're portraying through your
Yeah.
art. It doesn't mean that your art or you as an artist are bad, because definitely there is someone out there in the world who would love your art. I mean, if people will pay millions of dollars to buy a piece of art that has just a black circle in the middle and call it modern art, or just tape a banana to a ceiling and say, oh, modern art, $10,000, then obviously anything you do, there will be someone out there in the world who will like it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But do you think like a lot of artists and creative people, not just artists and creative people, like a lot of people in general, we're trying to focus on getting more likes, getting more followers, reaching out to an audience, because of course there is an algorithm, right? And it's going to favor those who already have popularity. So you'll have to work harder to become more popular or whatever it is, right? To gain more exposure,
Yes.
following, likes, whatever. So a lot of artists are focusing on like trying to work the algorithm, trying to become more relevant instead of really like focusing on am I making things that I enjoy? Am I making things that I want to? Is my art impactful? And instead they're just like, oh, let me see what's the thing that's selling the most, what people want to see the most.
What's trending,
Yeah.
what people
Yeah.
want. Yeah, in my opinion, that you should never do that, because
Of course.
then you fail as an artist. I remember your first podcast, it was, am I an
Yeah.
artist? And my response to that was, if you're creating something and you enjoy creating that thing, you are already an artist, irrespective of how many people like the thing that you created. And so if you make art based on what the people want and not what you want, you have already failed as an artist, because now you've become a greedy, money hungry monster instead of becoming an artist. That's gonna offend like a million people. Like, oh, so you're saying this person is a greedy monster?
I mean, art is also supposed to reflect society, right? So it's still art. They're still reflecting what the society is, how it is, and all of that. But I don't know how much self-satisfaction you can get out of that.
Exactly. I mean, sure, it still classifies as art, and you still classify as an artist, but you kind of fail as an artist, in my opinion, because you don't get any enjoyment out of it. You don't get any, as you said, satisfaction out of doing said art. You just get money, and I don't know. It's just how I feel, that you shouldn't pursue for money.
But like sometimes you really need to make the money, right?
You need to make the money, yes, but do what you love, and eventually you'll get the money.
I think that's kind of utopian. That doesn't really work. No, like it becomes easier to sell things if you love them and you truly believe in them. But you also need to be relevant. Like I remember you made a calendar, right? So you didn't just think, oh, this is all that I like, that I want to see and that I want in a calendar. You also thought, hey, what would the people who I'm trying to sell it to, what would they like? No?
Yeah, I did actually think about that.
Yeah.
In a way. Maybe I didn't realize it, but indirectly people's opinions do reflect in your art. What people want does reflect in your art. But again, if you make it 100% people's opinion, then it dilutes your work a lot.
It does. I can agree with that. It does.
So, okay, I would like to change my final opinion. You don't really fail as an artist, because I don't think I have the right to say who is an artist and who isn't an artist. But yeah, just don't let people's opinions become more than, say, 30-35% of your work. I'd say even 35% is maybe a little too much, but it's kind of inevitable to have people's opinions reflect in your art. But if you let it overflow a little too much, then your work will just, as I said, get diluted.
So do you think 33.33 is enough?
Oh, we're doing math now. Made with 2/3 love and 1/3 people's opinion.
Yeah. Okay, you tell me, how has your art changed because of social media? Because we don't live in like vacuum. Like we're obviously prone to influence, and in general, like something as expressive as art, it's very natural to like for you to get influenced by what someone else is making and that translating into your artwork. What are things that you have noticed, especially in your art?
Previously, I used to do a lot of colorful stuff, like landscapes and I don't know, sunsets and stuff like that. But then when I on social media itself, I saw art that was like, as I said, very less on color but more on light. It worked more with how light cuts through your
Yeah.
piece and how shadows and lights play in your piece. And I think I transitioned from being more of a colorful photographer to a more light heavy photographer, like someone who cares more about how it's lit more than how it's colored. Obviously you should have a good balance of both light and color, but yeah, and all of the floating stuff, I'm like known for my floating artwork. Not artwork, sorry, floating photographs. The sandwich is that was not my original
Yeah,
idea.
yeah.
I think I should like give a disclaimer. The sandwich was never my original idea. I came across it on Instagram and I saw someone make, like, it was the Subway wala sandwich, the 6-inch long
Yeah.
sub. It was that but floating, and I couldn't find the 6-inch long bread over here, but I improvised with just a regular square sandwich. And the technicalities, like how do I make this float, that I had to reverse engineer from the photograph and like come up with my own method to make it float. So through technicality I learned a lot. But coming back to your question, again, Instagram kind of made me turn from landscapes and reality towards more of fantasy pictures where stuff is floating
Yeah.
around and stuff is just in places where it's not supposed to be. So I really went into that track because of social media and because of Peter McKinnon, because the way the light cuts, Peter McKinnon actually does that really well.
That's cool. Okay. Like you talked about your sandwich picture. I actually really like that picture, but that is in a form an imitation of the other picture that you saw. Imitation is of course like the greatest form of flattery and all of that. But do you think for an artist, imitation is also suicide?
Not really, because as an artist you have to imitate, because your brain kind of runs out of ideas at a point and you need to take inspiration. Artists, what we do is just mask plagiarism under the title of inspiration. We plagiarize stuff and say inspired by something,
Yeah.
instead of plagiarized from something. The digital art that I made of
Yeah.
Wally that I put up on my Instagram, that was also technically, air quotes, inspired
Yeah.
by Instagram. I found that on Instagram and I was like, oh, let's recreate this. Nobody will ever know.
I remember in like art classes, like the teachers would specifically tell me like think from your own mind and all of that. And for a long part of my artistic journey, as I like to call it, I believed in that and I didn't copy. I didn't copy at all. I didn't use references. Like the only references I used was what like was given to me, and I didn't
Right.
use inspiration pictures and all of that. I tried to make it look as different as I could. And like now that I've like grown up a little bit, I've left class and stuff, I've begun to realize that like I really need to study references and all of that. But just like copying and imitating someone, do you think that's good for an artist? Just like plain copy, and not as a form of practice wala copy. Just like copy someone for a living.
I mean, you obviously you can do whatever you want. There's no set of rules that say that you can't do this except for copyright law. But that's a whole another story, so let's not go there. Oops. Yeah. My opinion on the whole quote unquote inspiration plagiarism is that if you're a new artist, like right now, I have been a photographer for like 5
Yeah.
years. Like, no, sorry, 3 years. I can't count. Whatever. I've been a photographer for a couple of years. But I haven't been. I've been a digital artist for less than a month because quarantine got me bored. So there's a learning curve with everything, and I just wanted to learn how to use Adobe Photoshop for digital art instead of doing regular photography
Yeah.
stuff. How to use Photoshop and how to use Adobe Fresco. It's another application. How do you use those apps for solely for digital art? Because there's the brushes and then there's the
Yeah.
flow and the brush tips and all of that stuff. And so for the beginning parts, it's funny. The first few paintings that I made were originals. After that, I started taking quote unquote inspiration because the first few paintings that I made were a little simple. You know, it was just circle and like clouds.
Yeah.
It was just a planet and clouds. It was just silhouettes and clouds. But now it's become a little more complicated. There's like different colors. There's like shading and stuff. And so because I wanted to get a hang of the whole shading thing, and I've not done that before. Our brain can only do so much. It can't create a new piece and learn the technicality of it at the
That's
same
true.
time. That's why I take quote unquote inspiration and learn the technicality first, and wherever possible I try to make an original. But when my brain doesn't work, let's go on Instagram and go to hashtag art.
When I was younger, I used to think that the lack of appreciation kills art and it kills like an artist because I felt that very strongly. And now there's this whole other side of the spectrum that I've been exposed to, which is that appreciation kills art. When you've been put up on a pedestal or when there are way too many people appreciating you, that kills your art. I mean, I haven't been on
Yes,
I haven't been on either side. Like, I mean, I have been on one side, but I haven't been on both sides to like say anything about it.
Yeah. I feel like artists, as human beings, get both crippled by the lack of attention, and when they get too much attention, I don't know if it's an egoistic thing for as a human being or what it is, but I have seen multiple YouTubers whose content I used to love before, whose content I used to like devour,
Yeah.
and then they became like popular and they got a lot of subscribers and they started making money and they got
Yeah.
sponsorships, and their content just went downhill. It just turned from amazing content to cringy content for money.
Yeah.
And when that happens, I just lost the YouTuber. I just lost the subscription to the YouTuber because they go from humble to inflated people who want money.
Yeah.
And again, over attention, like if you get too much is too bad. And at least in the case of most YouTubers, if when once they became popular, it just went downhill. At least for me, I don't know what the other people think, but at least for me, most YouTubers just go downhill when they became popular.
But like popularity isn't in your control. And actually, a lot of us do strive for popularity. I mean,
It's both good and bad. Like it's good and bad based on what you make of it.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, that is true. But popularity isn't really in your control. Because
Yeah,
if your art is really relatable, then you are going to get popular. If it's good in the eyes of the society and like the aesthetics that the society by and large has, that, and B, as humans we all want to make an impact, and the one way you can make an impact is by being popular. So like, first of all, of course you want to have more eyes on you, you want to have more people looking at your work.
I got your point, but popularity is good. I'm not saying you shouldn't get popular or you shouldn't strive to be popular. What I'm saying is once you become popular, it shouldn't affect your work. It shouldn't dilute your work. It shouldn't get in your head, basically. You should still create the same work, maybe with better quality, because now obviously with popularity comes money. When you get money, you can buy better stuff. In the instance of photography, you can buy better cameras. The quality of your work can improve. The quality of your production can improve. But the content shouldn't change, in my opinion. Like, for example, for legal reasons, I will not mention this YouTuber. but a YouTuber just I had just a photography channel and used to do vlogs from his travels and stuff. But then when he gained a little bit of popularity and he got a lot of money and he got sponsorships, Canon sponsored him. So you know how popular he became. Canon sponsored him, and then he turned less of vlogs and he just went to studio sessions and like interviews with people and like podcasts and stuff. Individually these elements are not bad. Obviously having a podcast isn't bad, having interviews isn't bad, but what I came to your channel for was the vlog. Was for you talking to us through a camera, not sitting at a desk and reviewing products basically.
Yeah, but like, I mean, for how long can you keep doing the same thing, right? You're gonna get bored of it eventually.
That's also there. I mean, yeah, I agree with you on that as well. I mean, I'm being a little too selfish because I want content that I want, and I'm not looking at the bigger picture of what everyone else wants and what the artist wants. So I'm kind of contradicting my own points that I made before.
Yeah, that's what I don't think so. Like, you can have like a strong enough opinion on anything, because then you realize like you're in a loop, and then like,
yeah, that's the thing about opinions. You can never make everyone happy, and you cannot make yourself happy either, because when you make two opinions circling around a same thing, there's a very good chance that those two opinions somehow contradict each other.
okay, have you ever been like scared to not scared to create, but scared to put your stuff online?
Sometimes, yes.
Why?
Because it wasn't controversial, but it was more on the insecure side. Again, will people like this? What will they think of this? I actually have an entire folder's worth of pictures that I never uploaded, because it deals with stuff like racism, and it deals with stuff like just controversial topics in general, and it deals with stuff like being comfortable with your body and stuff, and those are topics that you can't just upload on Instagram and not have a comment section full of people blaring at you.
You could actually. I mean, I think people of a sound mind would agree that racism is bad, and that you need to be more positive about your body and things like that. But I understand, like, it's like a really daunting thing.
Yeah, it's kind of a inbuilt insecurity, if you will.
Essentially, like, as an artist thinking like, oh, like, nobody would want to see my work, nobody would want to. Chances are there are at least like 5 people like you. At least, like, 5 is a very small number, but at least there are 5 people who think in the same way that you do. So that's why it becomes really important to like really express what you think and just like share it with the world. A lot of people don't put out their content because they're like, who would want to see it? My opinion doesn't matter. Or like, what I create is irrelevant to my context or any context. It just makes sense now. It won't make sense later. Nobody's like me. Like, chances are there are at least 5.
Yeah. I feel like insecurity is a part of
so
art,
true,
and it's just inevitable. Think about it like this: you've created something from inside you, in a sense. If people don't like what you've created, they basically don't like you, because it came out of you. That art that you made. Kenny Sebastian, in a stand-up comedy, he said that I've written my jokes, and if you reject my joke, you're rejecting me. And he said it in a much more funny way than I did. But in a way that makes sense, because like you create art from the inside, and it just reflects you. And if someone doesn't like that, then they don't like you, in a sense. I don't know if that makes sense, or if a lot of viewers or listeners will really relate to that. But yeah, I really don't think a single artist out there hasn't been insecure of his work, his or her.
Dude.
Yeah, you tell me, have you shown all of your work to like anyone, any human being other than you? Have they seen all of your work?
My parents, of course, like, but that's only because
no. Okay, yeah.
No,
okay,
actually,
fine,
okay.
Yeah, okay.
No, even they haven't seen all of my work, technically speaking.
Yeah, exactly. All of your work, like everything that you've
No,
created.
no. Even though I completely believe in the fact that like every opinion should be heard, should at least be heard, right? But it shouldn't be to that extent where like you're saying just absolute nonsense for the sake of saying something. Like,
Yes.
why would I
yes.
show you a sketch of like this random table that I drew while I was sitting in class?
Yeah.
No. Or like what I drew on the table while I was sitting in class? No.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't deserve to see like my textbook art. No, 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 no. So now that we are at the topic of drawing in textbooks, do you think the schooling system has killed your creativity?
I do think that the schooling system does kill creativity, and to like a very large extent. At least in the engineering field, because when I joined math, physics, and chem as as my 11th and 12th subjects, I did not expect this. Instead of being more science and learning oriented, it just turned out to be more marks oriented. And when it's marks oriented, it becomes question oriented. Like, how many questions can you do in this much time? Not how well your brain works in this much time. It's not how much you can push your brain and how much you can figure stuff out in 3 hours. It's how many questions can you do in 3 hours, and how many of those questions can you get right. And mind you, some of these questions are difficult and do require you to think creatively, but the creative thinking isn't creative as in it. I don't know how to explain this. Okay, it's like imagining a monkey riding a monkey driving a train, trying to dodge another monkey driving a train. Like, you have to creatively think in that way. It's not practical. It's not something
Yeah.
that's gonna happen in real life.
Yeah.
That you have to think about.
Yeah.
The questions that we get, at least in my opinion, is questions that could probably never happen in real life, because I'm pretty sure a monkey is not going to climb a piece of rope to tell you what its weight is. And a much more practical option would be to just pick up the monkey and put it on a weighing machine instead of having it climb a rope and another mass attached to the side, and then doing this whole thing with like 15 steps and 2 equations to finally find out, oh, the mass of the monkey is 10 kilograms.
Yeah.
Just pick up the monkey and put it on a weighing machine. Sorry, this topic is like
Touchy.
very near and dear to me. Yeah, and I will like rant about it for like 15 hours.
No, it does make sense. No, I do understand.
The creativity that you have to use in school is creativity to get past other people, not to solve a practical real life problem.
Do you think like very often people don't think of science as being very creative, and like when people think of, oh, usne science liya hai, or oh, like this person's taken science or whatever, oh, they wouldn't be creative. They're good at like just sitting studying like that. They're just studious people. They're not creative.
No, see, science as a subject is extremely creative, because you have to figure out how to do things, and in most cases you're not going to get an answer directly.
True.
In any field of science, when you do suppose you're taking physics and you do some experiments to find out something.
Yeah.
It's not going to directly come out and tell you, oh, this is a neutrino. No, you have to take that data and you have to analyze it, and then use your brain to figure out what that particle was that just passed through your experiment apparatus. It's not, the apparatus isn't gonna yell, oh, neutrino, oh, alpha particle. No, based on the mass or whatever. Yeah. I'm not very sure about experimental physics, and I'm just gonna start ranting about physics now. But again, it's not gonna directly come out to you and give you the final answer. You have to use your brain, you have to use creativity to find out what that final answer is. And that's not the case in schooling, because the whole reason why science kids in India have this reputation of not being creative is because majority of the science kids in India are not creative. At least in my opinion, they're not. mind you, some of them are extremely smart. Some of them, I'm not ashamed to admit that they are way smarter than me. Some of them are way smarter than I am. But they're a different kind of smart. And I'm not saying that they're the wrong kind of smart or I'm the right kind of smart. Both are the right kinds of smart, just used in different applications.
Yeah.
And so you're taking two people who excel at two different applications and making them study one thing that favors one person. And that's why majority of people in India, they suffer
Yeah.
when they take
That
science.
is true. I think in general, like, we have such stereotypes attached with like every subject. Like, science is for like people who can sit and study, and humanities is for people who can do ratta. Like, if I can't do ratta, then I shouldn't take humanities, which I think is completely wrong because I think it requires a little bit of logic. Not a little, actually, quite a bit. Because you can't just simply ratta like articles. You can't sit and like, article 1 says na. You have to understand it to be able to remember it. Sure, you can get by if you just ratta it, but that's not how the subject was meant to be studied. Even like science, like, you're not just supposed to sit and like, I don't know
Yes.
any chemical equation or anything. I'm sorry.
I totally got your point.
Because I think any subject, commerce, science, humanities, when we view these subjects, we view them in like binary. What people who take science say is, oh, I can't do ratta and I don't like commerce subjects, so that's why I took science. Or, I am a logical person, which is why I took science. Sure, that could be one of the reasons, but like other subjects are also logical. Commerce is very logical. Like, you can't have subjects existing if
Yes,
they're not
yes.
logical.
Exactly. No. Everything has some amount of logic attached to it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can just get by doing ratta or by hearting it. Even science you can, because what the system wants is your final answer, not how you came to the answer.
True.
Yeah. So suppose photography is taught in a classroom,
Yeah.
right, as a course.
Yeah.
Then I would not want to learn it in India, even though I love photography.
Hmm.
Because the way that they would teach photography is pick up the camera, and on this dial, we have M written. This M means manual.
Huh.
Then definition of
Manual, yeah.
Manual is a mode in which the person and or photographer has full control over the settings of the camera. Full stop.
Yeah. It's very oriented on like the textbook definition of things and how things are supposed to be.
Exactly, and it'll be like you could either understand
Yeah.
what manual mode means.
Yeah.
It means that I, as a photographer, can control the camera to my whim,
Yeah.
or you can just by heart that entire line and get by, because they're not gonna teach you. I'm pretty sure they won't teach you the applications of using manual mode, why it's important, why you should learn it.
Yeah.
They're not gonna teach you why manual even exists in a camera. They're just gonna be like, oh yeah, this is manual, this is what it's called, this is what it does. I don't know if I'm making sense right now, but
I do agree, man. If it would be taught in India, okay, let's not just generalize it to India. Like, let's just say if it would be taught in the kind of system that things are being taught right now in our country specifically, then it wouldn't be fun.
it would not be fun. I would not want to learn it because they wouldn't make learning a fun experience. They would make learning a textbook experience.
That's actually, I think like a lot of it is also contributed by your teachers and how genuinely interested your teachers are.
Yes.
Because honestly, I've had the best experience like learning the subjects that I've learned in 11th and 12th. But a lot of people with the same subjects as me haven't, because of teachers or because of whatever, because they didn't have the interest or like whatever. But I really think if your teacher is fun enough and like they know what they're talking about, more importantly, if your teachers
Yes,
know what they're
yes.
talking about, it really makes any subject fun. Which is why art was never fun in my school, not in the classes that I went to. In my school.
Specifying.
Specifying. Yeah, because like they're trying to teach you sub W. We call it sub W, SUPW. Do you guys have that? Okay.
No.
So like
never had that.
SUPW
No.
is art, but essentially they call it specially useful and productive work or something like that. Productive skills that like you can attain so that you can like, I don't know, start a business or whatever. I don't know. And they teach you how to make like how to embroider things. They teach you how to make cups out of like newspaper. How is that
Right.
productive work? Why would you do that? How is that art to begin with? I mean, okay, sure, that could be art, but no, it's not. I'm sorry.
I mean, no, I think that could, in some way, directly or indirectly, spark your creativity. Embroidery could, because I've seen some pretty good pieces.
But forcing
of
you
art
to do
made
that
out
is-
of embroidery. Force is never good. I mean, if you force someone to do science, no, that person's just not gonna want to do it, and he's not gonna be productive.
Okay, when we're coming to force, do you think sometimes like as a creative person you need to force yourself to do things that you wouldn't do?
Sometimes wouldn't do,
Like
maybe not.
like in the sense that suppose say I stick to one particular color palette. That's my comfort color palette and I always use it. If I want my art to grow, if I want to improve, I need to force myself out of that. So in that case, like maybe if as a traditional artist, like I stop buying those colors. I mean, that's way too extreme, but just like to catalyze yourself in that direction.
Push you out.
Yeah. Push me out.
Yeah, I guess stepping out of your comfort zone isn't really forcing yourself to do something you don't want to do, because again, you want to do that. You want to switch to a new color palette to grow. It's just a minor inconvenience. It's maybe like a little bit of discomfort, but it's not, forcing yourself to do something that you don't want to do or you're gonna hate doing. You're not gonna hate switching to a different color palette because you love
I
art.
mean, in the starting, of course. In the starting, of course.
Will you? I've never changed color palettes. Oh, I'm at that stage. Oh.
No. Like, changing color palette can also be like for you to like switch from landscapes to like heavy lighting based photography. Like things that are focusing more on how shadows and how light works and stuff like that.
I wouldn't really call that forcing myself out, because I wanted to do the light stuff. So since I don't really have much experience of forcing myself out of doing what I want to do, I probably should not have an opinion on this. Because again, I have no experience in this.
Yeah, but now that we are on the topic of CBSC, and the way that like they teach, moving on that same kind of line, they say like children are the most creative people, and then later we just become less creative because of our exposure and whatnot. But do you think creativity can be like unlearned, and essentially our education systems like perhaps making us less creative?
I feel like creativity can't be unlearned, but it can be buried. It can be, ignored and buried under a bunch of other stuff.
Ha.
But if you somehow manage to get that other stuff out,
Yeah.
then it will come back out, because creativity will eventually just come out. Because I mean, I don't know, because no experience, and like obviously this isn't a scientific fact that it is 100% proven, scientifically proven method, but it's just what I feel, that I don't think you can ever make a creative human being uncreative. You can only burden him or like bury his creativity under something else, which makes him seem like he's uncreative.
Actually, on that same note, do you think everybody is born with a certain amount of creativity in them? Like, you are X creative, you are Y creative. Like, there's a quota of creativity that everybody has. And creativity can't be learned.
No, I do not feel that way. I don't feel that there's only a certain amount of creativity and that cannot be added on top of, because the more you learn, the more experience you get, and I guess indirectly the more creative you get. Because I actually do have first-hand experience of this. In the STEM field, actually, in the engineering field, I have
Yeah.
a little bit of experience in this, because previously the way that my brain used to work was, previously here is not like 10,000 years ago. It's like relatively recent, but relatively previously. The way that my brain used to work was, let's go on the internet and see how people are doing this. I have an idea for a project, an engineering project, something that I can program for,
Yeah.
and something that some sort of, let's say a robot, right? Previously, I would just go on the internet and type out my idea, and chances are someone else has had the same
Yeah.
idea, and I would just again copy
Yeah.
the same thing here. But later on, as I learned a little more of how things work and how Arduinos work, and how I can connect different things to an Arduino and how they work with each other, I started to get more creative. I started to use different things together and learned that, oh, you can use this and combine the two and make a completely different thing
Yeah.
that works flawlessly in this application. I can't really use Arduino terminology because a lot of the viewers won't understand, but I hope I got my point across, that if you get more experience with something, and if you learn how things work, then you can be more creative and make them work with each other.
That makes sense.
As an artist, if you learn how one brush of one type and another brush of another type can mix two colors, if you learn the way that they mix those two colors, then you can implement that in like millions of other colors and like make your own piece and become more creative. Invent a color, I don't know.
For people who don't know what an Arduino is, can you just quickly explain?
An Arduino is basically a very tiny computer. It's literally called a microprocessor. It's a small computer. You can program it to do stuff.
And it helps like people to understand.
Yeah, it helps people get into robotics and embedded systems and the ECE field basically.
Where do you think that our education system is going? Especially when it comes to this creativity thing, because I know it's very important to appreciate and culture a creative attitude in schools, and some subjects require it, right? And it's something we need.
Yeah.
What would you envision it as? Like,
Are you asking like what an ideal learning environment is?
no, I'm asking you, like, how do you think in the future creativity will play out in our education system? Because some people are getting aware, some people are aware of it, that you need to be creative and all. A lot of people aren't. So how do you think like creativity will play out in our education system, and especially like relevant creativity, not creativity for the sake of being creative?
Yeah. I really don't know. I mean, I think that, yeah, as long as the people who are a part of CBSE or like govern CBSE, as long as they're no offense to old people, because old people are actually really sweet, but as long as they're old and they don't understand the new generation as much, as long as they work in the same way that they did 50 years ago, because if time changes, then the world is going to change, and you need to change the way you handle a situation. And this doesn't only apply to schools and education institutions, it also applies to politics and countries in general.
Yeah.
As long as they're not evolving, as long as they're not changing with time as the country changes, then it's really not gonna go anywhere. It's gonna stay the same, because the people who are making all the decisions are the same, and they're thinking in the same way.
And how do you think like creativity is going to play out in the future? Like, what do you think it's going to look like in education?
I feel that, it's gonna stay just as important as it is right now, because creativity is important. But in the future it's gonna be given more importance,
Huh.
if that makes
Huh.
sense. It is important, but right now it's not given importance. In the future it's gonna stay just as important as it is right now, but it's gonna be given more importance because, I mean, come on, there's like millions of students out there who are like suffering because of the lack of creativity. So change is bound to happen at some point.
That's a really good thought. Thank you guys for listening. This was the 4th episode of Vartalap. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Do let me know what you thought about it. And this is your host Maya signing off.